So, as I mentioned, Ethan is a huge Seattle Seahawks fan, and right now, like, we're seeing Russell Wilson kind of jumping out into the scene. He's in the MVP discussion and to some sort of degree. So, Ethan, Russ is on pace to throw the most attempts in a season out of his entire career. It's easy to say that Pete Carroll, the head coach, is kind of letting him cook. And since we're seeing more of him controlling the ball, and he's doing pretty well, do you think that this is a surprise to you, or is this, hey, this is just what happens when you let Russ cook?
You know, I've seen this for his entire career. Whenever they would get behind in a game, or he'd always bring them back. When he could take over the offense and just run them down the field, or call the plays at the line of scrimmage, he'd always make the plays. He'd always bring them back. He's always, bring them back. And this is one of the first few years where he hasn't really had Chris Carson, starting running back's been hurt. This is one of the first few years he hasn't had a running game, so he's been having to do a lot of it by himself. And he started out the year so well, and then now it's kind of come down a little bit, come back to earth a little bit. But I knew he had this in him, and I'm glad they finally let this year they let him, take over and take a little more of the offense and run the plays at the line of scrimmage and throw a little more and that kind of stuff. And they kind of needed to with that defense they have. So.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, sure. Like, some people are criticizing that, yeah, he's throwing the ball more and he's throwing more picks than usual. But, like, here's the thing, though. Like, regardless of, like, the amount of interceptions, he's on pace to beat his season best in total TDs in a season. Mm-hmm. And, like, and it's not only the TDs he's gonna surpass. He's about to surpass his own completion percentage. Right now, he's sitting about 70% this season. And I think his best season is like 66, 67%. So, sure, he's throwing the interceptions, but he's still throwing the ball with a thought process of throwing it to the right teammate, and just making good decisions. And just kind of a more technical level, he's on track to beat his own QBR and passer rating, which is a very technical statistic that kind of shows an overall picture of how well a quarterback is doing. And the thing that kind of sucks for him is that he's on pace to be sacked the most times this season, which is a little bit his fault, but it's also he doesn't have much to work with.
Yeah, his line, this is the best his line has ever been. He's ever had, and I think that's why he started out the year so well. And then I think he started to press and think he can make every throw, and he started to, they get behind, in the Buffalo game, they got behind 17-0. The game in LA, they played like garbage, and it started in the Arizona game when he started throwing in more picks and stuff like that, but. I think they kind of got back a little more running game last week with Carlos Hyde coming back, and I think that's kind of what he needs. He does a lot better with having the play action pass, and he's definitely one of the best scramble quarterbacks there is. So
right, yeah. I mean, what I like about him is that he's very efficient, and what I noticed is that he still has that level of efficiency with more passing attempts. That's what I notice in quarterbacks. Usually, when you see quarterbacks with real great efficiency, that's because they're not throwing it very much, but he is throwing much. And which is why I think this is actually normal Russ. Because if he's still being somewhat consistent about how he's performing with the amount of attempts, then I think this is just normal him. He just need to get out of his cage.
Yeah, I agree with Pete. Pete Carroll's always been the defensive coach, the running coach. You don't go for it on 4th and 1s. You play the game how it used to be played. And, finally this year he's letting the offense do what it needs to do. And right. I think he also knew coming into the season how bad his defense was going to be to start the year. Right. They've been coming on a little bit, but he's kind of realized that and knew they were going to have to outscore some opponents. So he's like, you know what, Russ knows what he's doing. He's one of the most accurate passers there is, and he's finally got a little better weapons this year too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and since we're still on the topic of what he's so good at, what are kind of the unique talents that he has that every quarterback has? I mean, just kind of start off. I think he has one of the best deep balls. It just lands so effortlessly. I could literally be Russ could call me from the stand, hey, you get in the stand, I'm going to throw this ball 50 yards and you're going to catch it. And I will somehow catch it. I think he can just land it so softly. Mm-hmm. And another thing is he's kind of off the field. When I notice interviews, is he's very optimistic, and he's really a team player kind of guy. People kind of criticize or make fun, think he's kind of corny.
He is very corny.
He does say some corny things. For starters, he named his newborn child Win.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of weird. But other than that, he's just a very likable guy, I think.
Yeah, he definitely thinks there's always a chance to come back no matter how far they're down. And, it's because they've done it before. They've been down 16-0 at home in the NFC Championship game when they beat the Packers.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff. And that's just how he's always been, very positive. He gets everyone to stay in the game and stay stay ready because he knows the situation's going to come, and he knows he's going to come through. He knows he's done it plenty of times. And granted, everyone's going to fail every once in a while, but for most times he's going to come through and make the plays to win.
Right, and you mentioned that he always thinks there's a chance to win, and like one thing I've noticed is like looking at his 2019 season, like he's very clutch. I mean, there's always a chance for a comeback in his eyes, and I sometimes question that maybe he kind of lacks a little bit of urgency halfway through the game, which causes him to make clutch plays in the last quarter. But looking at 2019, he had 4 comeback drives and 5 game-winning drives, which is pretty high statistically for quarterbacks that season. Mm-hmm. So he has that clutch gene in him, which I really like.
And also, it's the way that Pete Carroll also plays, so he gets to be put in that situation more and more, where he keeps the game close, he runs the ball, he plays defense, and keeps them in one-score games or within striking distance, at least in the fourth quarter. That's kind of what you want, and
right.
And he comes through. So
yeah, definitely.
But one of his traits that I think that it's not just him, but it's him and his receivers, is they work so well in their scramble drills where, they always know where he's going to go and how to get open with him when he's running around, and he's always looking downfield. He wants to pass. He doesn't want to run. As good as he is at running,
right.
He's always trying to get that pass on the field, and that's where their biggest plays come, is from the scramble drills.
Right. Since we're on the topic of his receivers, let's just talk about his overall weapons. Would you say his weapons are as dangerous as, say, the Steelers or Buccaneers or even the Cowboys?
I think that the if you want to talk about how high they're drafted or their actual skill level, no. But I think these receivers are best for him. Granted, they have a stud in DK Metcalf who's coming on, and that dude is just a freak. That dude will be a number 1 receiver on every team. But I think Tyler Lockett probably wouldn't be. He's a good receiver, but he works so well with Russell, and Russell just puts it on him every time. And he's really good at his route running and his scramble drill, stuff like that. And even David Moore, who's their third receiver, is also quick too. They like to throw a little screen pass to him. That dude can make anyone miss.
Right.
So granted, would anyone say that their receivers are up to the par with those guys? No, but in my opinion, yes. And I'm a little biased too.
Right.
I watch these guys play all the time, and I see the plays they make and the catches they make, and I'll take those 3 over.
Right. Yeah, sure. It is important to mention, sometimes be a little biased towards your team. I'm sometimes biased with the Packers, Aaron Rodgers. But kind of just looking at statistically, starting with Lockett, he's top 5 in receptions to target percentage. He's not dropping
he
as
always
many of
catches
his passes, which is a great trait to have, and that's hard to do with any sort of quarterback you have. He's not to mention he's also top 10 receptions and overall TDs. So you mentioned Lockett is real quick. He has really good separation, I think, when it comes to those short passes. And then DK Metcalf, he's the next kind of weapon where he's like a true deep ball receiver. He's top 5 in 20 and 40-plus yard receptions. And so, what's nice is that he has weapons, but he has different types of weapons for different sort of situations. And that's why I think they work so well together, because it's just an arsenal. All right, which receiver makes most sense for this sort of situational
right.
play?
Mm-hmm. And too, also, they're not a bunch of prima donnas. They know they're not top, first-round draft picks. They know that they have to work at it, and so they're not hey, I need the ball, give me the ball every time. They just want to win.
Right.
And if you get teams like the Bucs, who have Godwin, who's first-round pick, Evans, first-round pick, now you got Antonio Brown there.
Yeah.
They all want the ball, and they're going to cry about it if they don't get the ball. So I think that helps too, knowing that you can just spread the ball around to whoever you need to.
Right.
So.
And you mentioned the Buccaneers, and one thing that I kind of noticed, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, is the head coach Bruce Arians. He comes off to me as he likes to point fingers. I've never really seen a coach in press conferences that just straight up calls out players, especially calling out Tom Brady in a couple of game-losing drives. Mm-hmm. And I don't. Maybe you can correct me on this, but does Pete Carroll kind of do that, or is he kind of he's kind of the reputation, in my opinion, as a player-friendly coach? Do you think that's true? He's
definitely a player-friendly coach, and he won't call out people usually in the media like that. But maybe Bruce Arians knows how Brady is and knows. If I put him down in public, he's going to come out the next game and he's going to put out that he's going to play as good as he can. The next game is what he kind of thinks. Because Brady wants to be the best, and he's the best. And he's one of the best quarterbacks ever there is.
Right.
So some people say that it was with New England and his system that they had there. Because they never really had a top. The 1 year they had it was Randy Moss, and they set record after record with them. So I think that maybe Arians just what, let's try this and see. If him getting called out, we'll have him come out and play better the next game. So
yeah, that's a good. That's real insightful. I never really thought of it that way. I just kind of thought Arians and the Buccaneers have always been hey, we lose, we booze. So it's like I don't really care, and like I'll call anybody out. Honestly, it's not a big deal to them. But having Brady in their system now, they have to have a different mindset. But like kind of going in, we talk about the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk a little bit of the defensive side. And are you seeing any improvements? Because they've been known to have like one of the worst defense in terms of yards allowed. And to me, it seems like their pass defense is what's really killing them. Like looking at the run game, they're actually not that bad. And kind of just a little bit of stats here. They're really good at applying pressure to quarterbacks, and I think that same sort of strategy applies to with the run game as well. If they can just put pressure on the O-line and the quarterbacks, the same effect could happen with the run game.
Yeah, their D-line is definitely built better to be a run-stopping team than they are. But now they went out and they traded for Carlos Dunlap, who's come in and he's had 2 sacks in 2 games with them.
Yeah.
And also, the Jaron Reed was hurt a little bit, and he's kind of their interior pressure D-lineman. But Dunlap definitely is the pressure guy they've been missing. So they got him, and he's helped out that team. But also, with their pass defense, is to generate pressure, they've had to blitz a lot. So they blitz Jamal Adams, which is what he does as a safety. That's kind of his game. He blitzes. He's in the box safety. He's not a cover guy. So when you blitz like that, as many times they do with their linebackers, it opens up holes. And their cornerbacks, their starting quarterback, Shaq Griffin's been hurt. And the other one has been Quentin Dunbar, who has also been hurt. And this is his first year in Pete Carroll's system.
Right.
So with that, he's learning a new system, so he's been out of position a couple times, but also it's a lot of one-on-one coverage back there when they blitz like that. So that's kind of why they're getting up the yards. And also they got up big in a lot of those games against the Falcons start the year, against the Cowboys at the beginning of the year. They got up big in those games, so then all these teams are passing a lot more than running the ball, so that's why they play a little more prevent D because they're up by 3 scores or whatever when the teams come back. So, that's another thing that's kind of been up. But the last couple games, since they got Dunlap and Jamal Adams has come back healthy, they've been playing a lot better defense, and I think they're going to keep getting better and better as the year goes on. Because all they need to be is top 20 defense, and that'll help out Russell in the offense a lot. So
right, and then you mentioned Carlos Dunlap because I believe they picked him up from the Bengals.
Yes, they traded. I don't know what they traded for him. I don't know what pick they traded for.
Yeah, but my understanding was like the Bengals were kind of like eager to get him out though. So do you think there would be some like maybe not more like on the field problems, more off the field problems that could come off? Maybe why this is why Carlos was they were so eager to get rid of him.
He was not happy with his role in Cincinnati. He didn't play every down like he wanted to, and I think he was beefing with the coordinators and the coach from what I read, and he just wasn't happy with it, and he wanted a new contract, and Cincinnati wasn't going to give that to him, so he didn't want to play for him. So he's also like, well, then trade me then. If you're not going to put me in the position to make plays and let me play every down like I should be, then trade me. And they. Luckily for Seattle, worked out, and because Carlos Dunlap has always been a top D lineman. He's long, he's quick, and he fits Seattle's defense perfectly with his skills. So
yeah, if he's consistent of like how he's been playing these last 3 games, like I can definitely see him being worth what they gave to get him. And then going to Jamal Adams, you mentioned like his kind of niche is that he applies pressure more than safeties do. And do you think it would help that if he backed off a little bit on the pressure and kind of did more coverage to kind of balance out the equilibrium of kind of a little bit more stronger in the pass defense, but kind of back off a little bit of the rush defense?
Yeah, his skill set is not to be a cover safety. That's not him. He's quick and he can maneuver in around the line and all the pressure up front. So that's kind of what granted, he can cover, but their cover safety is Quandre Diggs, who is their deep safety. And Seattle plays a cover 3 scheme, and so they the 2 cornerbacks on the outside cover the back third, or their side of the third, and then the safety covers the middle third, and then their other safety is kind of the roamer. And so that's what they do with Jamal Adams. So I think that's just who he is. And, he's helped out that defense when he's been healthy. He was out for 5 games with a groin issue, and Seattle's defense struggled during that. So, he's still trying to learn also Pete Carroll's scheme and all the plays that they run. And they gave up a lot for him. They gave up 2 first-round picks, so we'll see if they can sign him to a contract. I think I want him there. He's a good player.
Yeah.
I like his energy that he brings to the team, especially this time in this year with no fans. Like, you need to generate your own energy, and he always has that for that defense. So it helps to have that. So
yeah, that's very true because not having no fans does create an impact because when there's big key play moments and the fans are out rallying the troops or keeping the players motivated. If you don't have that anymore, you're going to need your players to do the job for you.
Yeah.
So Ethan, since we're still in the discussion of the Seattle Seahawks and Russ cooking, do you think he has a good case of getting the MVP this year? If not, what do you think he needs to do to improve his chances?
I think, to start the year, he was on fire. No one could touch him. I think he had 14 total touchdowns in the first 3 games, and he was definitely number one on MVP. But, then he had 3 out of the 4 bad games. He had one good one in there, I think, against San Fran. But he had a bad game against Arizona, bad game against the Bills, and a bad game against L.A. So I think those 3 games are going to hold him back from getting the MVP. And, to be honest, to get the MVP, I think they have to, win out, get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and he's got to maybe have 1 or 2 more turnovers the rest of the year and throw for another, what we got, 6? We got 7 games left? No, 6 games left. 6 games left. He's got to throw, I'd say, at least 18 touchdowns over the last 6 games. So you got to average 3 touchdowns a game and 2 turnovers total over the 6 games. That's the fumbles, interceptions, and someone's got to. Mahomes has to have a bad couple of games.
Right.
Somewhere, I don't see that happening. But, I think that a quarterback is always going to be the MVP, but that team without Russell would be terrible.
That's true. And I said this in a previous episode, Russell was my top pick going through week 5, I think. He was my top pick because, statistically at the time he was the best, but then MVP means most valuable player. In my eyes, if that person's value is gone, the team is in shambles.
Yeah.
It's very obvious that Russ is with keeping the game alive, and a little bit of the defense is trying to step up now. That's the thing. If the defense continues to improve and Russ still can do his thing, then he'll start the Seattle Seahawks will have a better chance of getting that number 1 seed, and Russ will look good in the process of it because if they play good, he'll play good as well. And in terms of what I think right now, I don't think he's going to win it. I think Mahomes is in the favor just because the media loves Mahomes too.
Yeah, and he's great. He's the best quarterback we have in the NFL right now.
Right,
hands down.
He's definitely the best right now. The guys like Brady and Rodgers, they're past their prime. Rodgers is playing really great, but he's not playing Mahomes level though.
No. Yeah, and Mahomes doesn't have. His defense has been okay this year. They're not bad, but that's the thing that's why Russ was number 1 for 5 weeks. Because his defense was historically bad with the yards and points they're giving up, and they're still 5-0. They're winning every game. So you had to put him at that point.
Yeah, I like to put Mahomes in that category of being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But I want to see some adversity. Yeah. I want to see him play with the team. Maybe probably not this year or next year. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, he'll eventually not have the best receivers in the league. I want to see what he does with what little he has. Because we've seen it. We've seen all the great quarterbacks done it. Brady has done it. Rodgers has done it. Russ has done it in the past. And I think that would be, all right, he did it. He's done it all now. He's worked. He's made the best of what he's had with so little. The conversation's over. He's definitely going to be in the tier of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.